The room went silent. You could hear the hum of the expensive air conditioning unit in the high-rise law office, but nobody dared to breathe. Liam sat in the corner, wearing a suit that was 5 years old, his hands folded quietly in his lap. Across the mahogany table, his stepmother, Elena, checked her reflection in her compact mirror, while his stepbrother, Bryce, tapped away on his phone, looking bored. They were here for the reading of Arthur Sterling's will. The billionaire founder of Sterling Logistics had died 3 weeks ago in a car crash. Brake failure. A tragic accident, the police said. Mr. Henderson, the family lawyer, cleared his throat. His hand shook slightly as he broke the seal on the envelope. He looked at Liam with eyes full of pity before turning his gaze to the paper. "To my wife, Elena, and her son, Bryce," Henderson read, his voice monotone, "I leave the estate, the liquid assets, the entire stock portfolio, and the controlling interest in Sterling Logistics." Elena didn't even smile. She just nodded as if this were the only logical outcome. Bryce let out a loud, mocking laugh. Finally, about time the old man let the real visionaries take over. "And to my son, Liam," Henderson continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. Liam looked up. He didn't expect money. He just wanted the workshop where he and his dad used to build model planes before Alana came along. "To Liam," Henderson read, "I leave the contents of my personal dictaphone recorder and the old heavy-duty safe in the basement. He is to vacate the family home within 24 hours. Elena laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "A tape recorder? That's fitting. Trash for the trash." Bryce leaned over the table, sneering at Liam. "You heard the man, little brother. You're out. I want your keys on this table before you leave. You're nobody now." Liam stood up slowly. He didn't scream, he didn't cry. He walked to the lawyer, took the small, battered digital recorder, and placed it in his pocket. He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "Enjoy the money, Elena." "Get out!" she screamed. Liam walked out, his heart pounding. He knew his father. Arthur Sterling never did anything without a reason. As Liam stepped into the elevator, he put his headphones on and pressed play on the device. The first 5 seconds of the recording made his blood turn to ice. Flashback. Humiliation. The elevator descended, but Liam's mind went back in time. He needed to understand why his father had left him with nothing but a cheap plastic device. The humiliation of the will reading wasn't new. It was just the final nail in a coffin that Elena had been building for years. Flashback to 6 months ago, the Sterling Logistics annual gala. Liam had spent 3 months tirelessly working on a new supply chain algorithm that saved the company millions in fuel costs. He had stayed up late nights, sleeping on a cot in the server room, fueled by coffee and the desire to make his father proud. At the gala, Arthur Sterling took the microphone. Liam straightened his tie, waiting for a nod, a mention, anything. "I want to thank the person responsible for our record profits this quarter," Arthur announced, the spotlight sweeping the room. "My stepson, Bryce. His vision for the logistics overhaul was brilliant." The room erupted in applause. Bryce walked onto the stage, beaming, shaking Arthur's hand. Liam stood in the shadows near the kitchen entrance, holding a tray of drinks he'd been asked to hold by a waiter who thought he was staff. Elena glided over to him, sipping champagne. "Don't look so sad, Liam. Someone has to do the heavy lifting while the stars shine. You're just better suited for the background, like a piece of furniture." "I wrote the code, Elena. Bryce doesn't even know how to open the program," Liam whispered, his fists clenching. "Does it matter?" She smiled, her eyes cold. "Arthur listens to me, and I told him Bryce has executive potential. You're just the son of his first mistake. You're replaceable." Liam had looked at his father on stage. Arthur looked tired, his eyes scanning the crowd, looking for someone. When his eyes locked with Liam's, he looked away in shame. Back in the present, the elevator doors opened to the lobby. Security was already waiting. "Mr. Sterling, Bryce, called down," the head guard said, looking apologetic. "He said you're banned from the premises immediately. We have to escort you out." Liam nodded. "It's okay, Frank. I'm leaving." He walked out into the pouring rain, clutching the recorder in his pocket. He was homeless, jobless, disowned, but as the rain soaked his cheap suit, he remembered the look in his father's eyes that night at the gala. It wasn't shame, it was fear. Liam sat in his rusted sedan, parked 3 blocks away from the Sterling mansion. The rain hammered against the roof, matching the chaos in his mind. He had 24 hours to clear out his personal belongings, but he knew Elena wouldn't wait that long. She was probably already throwing his clothes onto the driveway. He pulled the digital recorder out of his pocket. It was an old model, one his dad used for dictating memos in the 90s. Why this? Why now? He plugged it into his car's auxiliary jack and pressed play again. Liam, if you're listening to this, I'm gone, and it wasn't an accident. The voice was shaky, breathless. It sounded like his father was hiding in a closet. I've been blind. Elena and Bryce, they've been funneling money into offshore accounts for years. I found the ledger tonight. I confronted them. That was a mistake. There was a pause, and the sound of a door handle rattling on the recording. They think I'm going to the police station, but I checked the car earlier. The brake fluid line was tampered with. I fixed it, but I'm taking the car anyway. I have to act like I don't know. I need to get the physical evidence from the safe before they burn it. If I don't make it back, the code to the basement safe is the date of your mother's death. Check the false bottom. The recording cut off with the sound of an engine starting. Liam stared at the radio, tears streaming down his face. His father hadn't abandoned him. His father had walked into a death trap trying to save the company for him. The accident on the highway hadn't been a failure of the car, it was murder. His phone buzzed, an alert from the bank. Alert, your checking account has been frozen due to suspicious activity. Elena was moving fast. She wasn't just kicking him out, she was erasing him. He looked up at the mansion on the hill. The lights were on. They were celebrating. They thought he was broken, a poor man with no resources and no fight left in him. They thought he was just the quiet son who took orders. Liam wiped his face. He reached into his glove box and pulled out a frantic handwritten list he had kept since he was a teenager, a list of every password, every security backdoor, and every hidden key his father had ever shown him during their model plane days. You want a war, Elena? You just started one. The crisis hit Liam faster than he expected. Within 2 hours of the will reading, his life was being systematically dismantled. He tried to check into a motel, but his credit card was declined. Card reported stolen, the clerk said, eyeing him suspiciously. Elena had reported his cards as company property. He tried to call his father's old friends, board members who had known him since he was a boy. None of them answered. Then a text from Mr. Henderson, the lawyer. Do not contact me. They are monitoring my communications. They are watching you. Liam was cornered. He had no money, no allies, and the police report on the accident was already sealed. If he went to the cops just with a grainy audio recording, Elena's high-priced lawyers would claim it was a deep fake or the ramblings of a senile man. He needed the hard evidence from the safe. But getting back into the house was impossible. Elena had hired private security to patrol the grounds. They were armed. Liam parked his car in a 24-hour parking garage and tried to sleep, but adrenaline kept him awake. He opened his laptop, connecting to a public Wi-Fi signal from a nearby cafe. He logged into the company's internal server, or tried to. Access denied. User Liam Sterling terminated. They had scrubbed his credentials, but they had forgotten one thing. Liam wasn't just a logistics manager, he was the one who had set up the server architecture 5 years ago. He knew the back doors. He knew the shadow admin account he created for maintenance, hidden deep in the system code. He typed furiously. Username, Ghost Protocol. Password, Mother's Birthday. The screen flickered. Green text appeared. Access granted. He was in. He navigated to the security camera feeds of the mansion. He saw them. Elena and Bryce were in the study, drinking his father's scotch. Bryce was laughing, holding a lighter. Liam zoomed in. They were burning papers in the fireplace. No, Liam gasped. Then he saw it. In the corner of the screen, behind the heavy velvet curtains, was the old basement door. Elena had forgotten to lock it.
But the real crisis wasn't the fire, it was the email notification popping up on the server. Subject, asset liquidation, urgent. To Apex Holdings. Body, we accept the offer to sell Sterling Logistics for scrap. Signatures attached. They weren't just stealing the company, they were destroying it. They were selling his father's legacy for scrap metal to make a quick billion. Liam slammed the laptop shut. He couldn't wait for legal proceedings. He had to go into the lion's den tonight.
The storm was Liam's best cover. The rain lashed against the estate walls, masking the sound of his footsteps as he skirted the perimeter fence. Most people saw Liam as the quiet, bookish son. They didn't know that during his college years, while Bryce was partying, Liam had spent his summers working with the company's physical security team, testing vulnerabilities. He knew exactly where the blind spot in the camera grid was, the delivery entrance near the kitchen. He vaulted the fence, landing silently in the mud. He moved like a ghost, avoiding the flashlight beams of the private guards. He wasn't a soldier, but he was methodical, precise. He treated this like a logistics problem, point A to point B, zero friction. He reached the basement bulkhead doors. Locked. He pulled out a thin metal shim from his pocket. He didn't need a key. He knew the latch mechanism was rusted on the inside. A precise strike with his palm against the sweet spot, and the latch clicked. He slipped inside. The basement smelled of dust and old memories. This was where he and his dad had spent hours building things. In the corner, covered by a tarp, was the heavy-duty safe. He knelt before it. Combination, mother's death date. He spun the dial. Right, 10. Left, 24. Right, 98. Click. The heavy door swung open. It wasn't empty, but it didn't contain stacks of cash. Inside were 3 things: a thick, leather-bound ledger, a flash drive labeled Project Icarus, in a rugged, waterproof envelope. Liam opened the ledger. It was a manual record of every illegal transaction Elena and Bryce had made. Arthur had been tracking them for months. Suddenly, the basement light flicked on. "I knew a rat always returns to its hole," a voice sneered. Liam froze. He turned slowly. Bryce was standing at the top of the stairs, holding a golf club. Behind him was the head of security, hand on his holster. "You really thought you could sneak in here?" Bryce laughed, descending the stairs. "Hand it over, Liam, and maybe I won't break your legs." Liam stood up, holding the ledger. His face showed zero fear. He looked at the security guard, Frank. "Frank," Liam said calmly, "check the clause in your employment contract, Section 4, Paragraph B, whistleblower protection and duty to report. If you assist in a felony, your pension is voided immediately." Frank hesitated. "What?" "This ledger proves embezzlement," Liam said, his voice steady. "If you touch me, you're an accessory to a federal crime. Bryce is firing everyone next week once the sale goes through. Did he tell you that?" Bryce's eyes widened. "Shut up! Frank, get him!" Frank looked at Bryce, then at the ledger, then at Liam. He took his hand off his holster. "I'm not losing my pension for you, Bryce." Bryce screamed and swung the golf club. The golf club whistled through the air. Liam didn't flinch. He sidestepped with a calm efficiency, letting the metal club smash into the wooden work table, shattering a model airplane. Bryce stumbled, off balance. Liam didn't fight back. He simply stepped out of range. "It's over, Bryce. I have the proof." "You have nothing," Bryce spat, red-faced. "You think a book matters? We own the judges. We own the police chief." "Maybe, but you don't own the DNA results." The room went dead silent. Even Frank, the security guard, looked up. "What are you talking about?" growled Bryce, straightening his jacket. Liam opened the waterproof envelope he had taken from the safe. He pulled out a document stamped with a medical laboratory seal. "Dad didn't just investigate the money, Bryce. He investigated you." Liam held up the paper. "Arthur always wondered why you were so different from him, why you had zero aptitude for the business, why you were so cruel. So when he went for his heart surgery last year, he ran a paternity test on you, unbeknownst to Elena." Bryce's face drained of color. "That's a lie." "Is it?"
Liam read from the paper. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. You aren't Arthur Sterling's son. You aren't a Sterling at all. Bryce staggered back as if he'd been punched. And here is the kicker, Liam continued, his voice cold. The bylaws of Sterling Logistics state that voting shares can only be held by direct blood descendants or their legal spouses. Since Elena knew this, she lied on the birth certificate. That's fraud, which means your claim to the company isn't just void, it's criminal. Mom? Bryce whispered, looking up the stairs where Elena had just appeared, wearing her silk robe, her face a mask of horror. He's lying, Elena shrieked, her composure shattering. Shoot him, Frank! Shoot the intruder! I'm not shooting anyone, Mrs. Sterling, Frank said, stepping back. The real twist isn't the DNA, though, Liam said, locking eyes with Elena. It's what Dad found out about your lover, the man that actually fathered Bryce. Elena froze. It was the mechanic, wasn't it? The same mechanic who serviced Dad's car the day the brakes failed. The silence in the basement was heavy enough to crush them. Liam had connected the dots. It wasn't just greed, it was a family conspiracy spanning 20 years. You didn't just kill him for money, Liam realized, his stomach turning. You killed him because he found out the truth. Elena's hand moved into her robe pocket. She pulled out a small pistol. You're too smart for your own good, Liam.
The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed concrete basement. But Elena missed. Her hand shook too much. The bullet shattered a jar of screws on the shelf behind Liam. "Frank, take her down," Liam shouted, diving behind the heavy oak workbench. Frank, the security guard, didn't hesitate this time. He lunged at Elena, wrestling the gun from her grip. But in the chaos, Bryce grabbed the ledger and the flash drive from the table and bolted up the stairs. "Let me go," Elena screamed, scratching at Frank's face. "Go, Liam, get the evidence," Frank yelled, pinning Elena to the floor. Liam sprinted up the stairs, chasing Bryce. He burst into the main hallway just in time to see Bryce scrambling out the front door into the rain. Liam ran to his car, but tires screeched. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Elena must have triggered the silent alarm before coming down. Liam saw Bryce jump into his Porsche and peel away. He had the physical proof. If Bryce destroyed that ledger and drive, Liam would only have the DNA paper, enough to embarrass them, but not enough to prove murder. The police cruisers swerved into the driveway, blocking Liam's exit. "Freeze! Hands in the air!" Liam stopped. He was trapped. If he was arrested now, Bryce would have time to burn the evidence. Elena would spin a story that Liam broke in and attacked her. He looked like the intruder, dressed in black, muddy, standing over a pinned woman. "Officer, listen to me," Frank shouted from the doorway, dragging Elena out in handcuffs, his own cuffs. "She fired a weapon. The boy is innocent." The police hesitated, looking at the wealthy widow and the trusted security guard. Liam seized the second of confusion. He didn't run away from the cops. He ran to his car. "Stop him," an officer yelled. Liam dove into his sedan, keyed the ignition, and floored it. He wasn't running to escape justice. He was hunting it. He knew where Bryce was going. The incinerator at the Sterling warehouse. It was the only place to destroy a heavy ledger quickly. As Liam sped onto the highway, the police pursued him. Blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. He was being framed as a dangerous criminal fleeing a crime scene. The news helicopters were already launching. Breaking news. Disgraced heir Liam Sterling attacks stepmother, flees police chase. "Let them chase me," Liam muttered, gripping the wheel. He turned on his custom dashboard radio, a modification he and his dad installed. He tuned into the police frequency. "Suspect heading north on I-95, armed and dangerous." Liam grabbed his phone and dialed Mr. Henderson. "Henderson, meet me at the warehouse. Bring the press and bring the state prosecutor." "Liam, you're a fugitive." "Not for long. I'm bringing you the murderer." The Sterling Logistics warehouse was a massive steel skeleton rising out of the industrial district. Rain lashed against the metal siding as Liam's sedan skidded into the lot. Bryce's Porsche was already there, door open, engine running. Liam didn't wait.
He jumped out, ignoring the sirens getting louder in the distance. He sprinted into the warehouse. Inside, the industrial incinerator roared. Bryce was standing on the catwalk above the furnace, the ledger in one hand, in the flash drive in the other. He looked like a madman, his expensive suit soaked, hair wild. "Don't come any closer," Bryce screamed, holding the evidence over the railing. Below him, the fire raged. "It's over, Bryce," Liam yelled, his voice echoing through the vast space. "The police are outside. Frank told them everything." "Frank is a traitor. I'll burn this. I'll burn it all. Without this, it's just your word against ours." Suddenly, the warehouse doors blew open. Not the police, but the press, and behind them, Mr. Henderson and the district attorney. Liam had timed it perfectly. The police chase had drawn every camera crew in the city to this exact spot. "What is this?" Bryce froze, seeing the cameras pointed at him. Liam stepped into the light. He held up his phone, connected to the warehouse PA system via Bluetooth. "Go ahead, Bryce. Throw it in," Liam said, his voice amplified through the speakers. "But before you do, everyone needs to hear what's on the cloud backup." "Cloud backup?" Bryce faltered. Liam tapped his screen. A voice boomed through the warehouse. It was the mechanic's voice, Bryce's biological father. "Yeah, Lena, I did it. I cut the line, but you gotta pay me double. If Arthur found out Bryce is my kid, we're all dead." The reporters gasped. Flashes went off like lightning. The district attorney signaled the SWAT team waiting in the shadows. Bryce looked at the ledger, then at the police, then at Liam. The arrogance vanished. He was just a scared kid who had been a pawn in his mother's game. I didn't know about the breaks," Bryce stammered, tears mixing with the rain dripping from his nose. "Then come down," Liam said softly. "Don't die for her sins." Bryce lowered his hand, but as he did, a side door slammed open. Elena ran in, having escaped custody or posted bail. It didn't matter. She looked deranged. "Throw it in, you idiot!" she screamed, rushing up the stairs towards Bryce. "Mom, stop!" Bryce yelled. He lunged at Elena, grabbing the ledger. They struggled on the wet metal catwalk. "It's mine! The company is mine!" she shrieked. The railing, rusted and old, groaned under their combined weight. "Watch out!" Liam shouted, running towards the ladder. With a screech of tearing metal, the railing gave way.
The metal screeched, and for a second, time seemed to suspend. Bryce and Elena teetered over the roaring incinerator. Liam didn't think. He didn't consider the years of abuse, the insults, or the theft. He lunged forward, grabbing Bryce's wrist just as the railing snapped completely. Elena wasn't so lucky. She lost her grip on the ledger. She grabbed at Bryce's leg, her nails digging into his pants, trying to pull him down with her to save herself. "Let go, Mom!" Bryce screamed, dangling over the heat. "If I go, you go," she hissed, her face contorted in pure malice. Police swarmed the catwalk. 2 officers grabbed Liam's waist, anchoring him as he held on to Bryce with everything he had. "Pull her up!" Liam yelled, his muscles straining. But Elena looked down at the fire, then up at Liam, the boy she had tormented for years. She saw the pity in his eyes. She couldn't handle that. She couldn't handle being saved by him. She smirked. "You'll never really own it, Liam." She let go. The scream was cut short by the roar of the fire. The police pulled a sobbing, shaking Bryce back onto the catwalk. The ledger had fallen with Elena, consumed by the flames. Bryce sat on the metal grating, traumatized. He looked up at Liam. "The proof. It's gone. She took the ledger." Liam stood up, straightening his jacket. The district attorney walked over, looking grim. "Without that ledger, Mr. Sterling, proving the financial crimes will be difficult. We have the audio, but a defense lawyer could argue—" Liam reached into his inside pocket. He pulled out a small, sealed envelope. "You didn't think that was the only copy, did you?" Liam said calmly. Everyone stared. "My father was a logistics expert. He taught me about redundancy. The ledger in the safe, that was a decoy, a prop to catch them in the act." He handed the envelope to the DA. "This is the real evidence. Dad mailed it to himself at a P.O. box 3 days before he died. I picked it up this morning before the will reading. I just needed them to incriminate themselves publicly." Bryce stared at Liam in shock. You staged all of this?" "I planned it," Liam corrected. "There's a difference." The DA opened the envelope. Inside were notarized bank statements, the original birth certificate proving Bryce's parentage, and a signed confession from the mechanic implicating Elena. "But there's one more thing," Liam said, turning to the cameras. "The company bylaws." He pulled a final document from his pocket. Dad added a poison pill clause. In the event of his unnatural death, ownership of Sterling Logistics doesn't go to his heirs immediately. It goes to a blind trust. "Who is the trustee?" the DA asked. Liam pointed to the back of the room. An old man in a janitor's uniform stepped forward. It was Mr. Abernathy, the company's first employee, a man Elena had fired years ago, but who Arthur had kept on payroll secretly. "The most honest man my father knew," Liam smiled. Abernathy held up a key, "and I vote for Liam." The courtroom was packed, but it was quiet. The judge banged the gavel, sealing the fate of the conspirators. "Bryce Miller," he was no longer allowed to use the name Sterling, "for your cooperation and testimony against the late Elena Miller and for the mechanic who tampered with the vehicle, you are sentenced to 5 years in minimum security, followed by probation." Bryce nodded, his head low. He looked broken, stripped of the arrogance and the suits. As the bailiff led him away, he paused near the front row. Liam sat there, looking sharp in a navy suit. "Thank you for saving my life at the warehouse." Liam didn't smile, but he nodded. "Don't waste it, Bryce." The mechanic received a life sentence. Elena's assets were seized by the state to pay back the embezzled funds. The mansion was sold. Liam walked out of the courthouse and down the marble steps. The press was waiting, microphones thrust in his face. "Mr. Sterling, what will you do with the company now that you're CEO? Will you fire the board? How does it feel to be the richest man in the city?" Liam stopped. He adjusted his cufflinks, the ones his father had left him in the trash box, which turned out to be solid platinum. "I'm not firing anyone who does honest work," Liam said into the cameras. "We're going to rebuild. Sterling Logistics was built on trust. We lost that for a while. Now we're bringing it back." He walked through the crowd to his car. Not a flashy sports car, but his father's vintage Mustang. Mr. Henderson was waiting in the passenger seat. "You handled that well, Liam. Your father would be proud. You know, they all called you a nobody. They thought you were weak because you were quiet." Liam started the engine. The rumble was deep and powerful. They mistook silence for weakness. They forgot the most important rule of logistics. "What's that?" Henderson asked. "The loudest engine isn't always the fastest, and the quietest man is the one who hears everything." He shifted gears and drove off, leaving the chaos behind him. Karma never loses an address, and sometimes it arrives in a sealed envelope.